Hello and welcome to this lovely project. It's our August 2020 project. It's by Kate Eastwood of Just Pootling, and it is a gorgeous duffel bag. I am speaking to you this morning having almost finished mine, and I can tell you it's an absolute joy to make from start to finish. Not too complicated, so there's only really a handful of techniques that we'll need to cover in the videos, which is probably a relief for some of you who've sat through dozens of dozens of them in some of the ones I've done before. So a really kind of perfect project really, and using gorgeous cotton, which is such a joy to work with. It's very hot at the moment, and I've managed to work this all through that awful heat wave without any problems at all, because cotton is cool and lovely to work with. And it's a really nice soft cotton as well, the yarn and colours. So I'm all in, completely in love with this project. Let's get going. Right, now this does not look terribly exciting, but it is an essential item for this project. And let me tell you, it serves two purposes. This is your tension swatch. Okay, it's a little tiny piece of crochet. Is it 5 rows long and 10 stitches wide in double crochet. And what it will do is it will make sure that you're kind of working in the same way that Kate worked the pattern, to make sure you don't run out of yarn. There's quite, I would say there's quite the margin for error on this one, because I've got quite a lot left over. Like I said, I've nearly finished mine. I've got quite a lot left over and have made tremendous mistakes throughout. So you'll probably be fine, but let's not risk it. Do a little tension swatch like this one here, and make sure if you are wildly out on the size. Now the size of this is 6 centimeters long, 3 centimeters wide. If you are wildly out, if yours is coming out enormous, like 8 centimeters by 4 or 5 or something like that, you need to go down a hook size or two. It's a small enough piece that you can make a couple of them quite happily to get there or thereabouts on your tension swatch. So if it's coming up too small, maybe like 2.5 by 5.5, something like that. Firstly, you will relax a bit as you start working your bag, so your tension will change a tiny bit. But if it's considerably smaller, you need to consider going up a hook size. So if it's too small, go up. If it's too big, come down a bit. Okay, so this is mine. Mine is there or thereabouts 6 centimeters by 3. And I said at the very beginning of this serves two purposes. I need you to put this to one side because we are going to use it later. So you can't get out of making it. You might as well make it at the beginning and make sure you're going to be all right all the way through the project. So that's our little tension square. Make it and keep it safe. Let's make a start with the base. The base is worked in the round. Here's one I made earlier. And it is worked obviously from the centre outwards, holding 2 yarns together. I think you can probably see that we're holding the 2 yarns together there. It's worked in a continuous spiral, which means you don't close the round at the end of each round, you just keep going. And all I want to show you is how to do a magic loop, because it starts with a magic loop or a magic ring, and then have a little chat with you about how increases work. And that's all you'll need to get you going. Right, so we're using both birch and cream. So you can see birch is just, I've already done some stuff with the cream, so don't worry about that being a bit smaller. Birch is a sort of a grey taupe cream colour, and cream is cream. There doesn't look to be too much contrast between them until you put them together, and it's very subtle and very beautiful, and I really love it. So let's get going. We're working by holding both the colours together, and that is literally, as the name suggests, you're just going to work with holding both yarns at the same time and working both yarns on your hook at the same time, and that is all that means. So it's not too difficult. So tail ends over the backs, fronts, whatever side of my fingers this is. Tail ends over, go round my finger once, and you can see there's a cross there. Where the cross is, I put my hook underneath and clamp my finger just to hold it in place. So when I take my hand away, it doesn't collapse or anything like that. Tension my yarn as normal. Pick up the yarn and use my left hand to help that hoop over the end of the hook. Now it might not look pretty, but it certainly does the trick, because when I take my finger off now, I can move that quite happily, and you can see the loop has come through the centre there. pick up the yarn and pull it through. Now I can let go completely and I've got a totally secure little loop ready to work into. So that's made the center point or the loop for me to start working my stitches into. That is just a magic ring. Okay, now we're going to work 6 double crochet into the magic ring, and double crochet, we're looking at UK terminology here, so that is all we're going to do, and I'll do that 1, 2, 5 and 6. Now if I then pull, if I get the end, that little end, sorry I was way off centre there wasn't I, if I get the little end and give that a pull, you will see it's quite tough, but that's what you want. We're making a bag, we need it to be tough. Give that a pull and it closes that little ring up, closes it and makes a nice firm center point for your bag. Now when we do a couple more rounds, stop and sew this end in so that opening doesn't open out. It's usually remains fairly secure with cotton, but don't leave it too long to sew the ends in. You don't want that center opening out. So we have completed round 1, and we're not going to be fastening off with a slip stitch or anything because we're working in a spiral. And what we're going to do from the next point onwards, I'm going to start using my beautiful Maliqua Sparkly and Gorgeous, there we are, Swarovski, can't say it, crystal stitch marker. It's so bloomin' beautiful. I love these so much. Anyway, so I'm going to go straight to the first double crochet that we made and put my hook in, and it's tricky. It is tricky to start with. Please bear with it because it will get easier. And I'm going to make 2 double crochet in that one, in that first stitch. But before I make the second one, I'm going to stop here and clip my stitch marker on so I know that that is stitch number 1. You don't have to put it all the way through, just mark it. I know that that stitch that I've just made is the first one of the round. All right, and that's going to come back and help me later. So that, okay, I'm doing two double crochet in each stitch all the way around. And this is a fairly or a completely standard way of working in the round and increasing your stitch count outward. And the way that works, and I'm sure you already know this, but I really do like this. When you're working an increase from the center out, the first round that you do, you will put 2 stitches into everything. The next round that you do, you will put 2, you'll alternate and do 2 stitches in one and then 1 in the next one, 2 and 1, 2 and 1 all the way around. And then the next one out, you'll do 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. So for each round you do, you increase, you put a stitch between your increases. Your increases are just you working 2 stitches into one. And so as you work outward, those increases space out a little bit. So to start with, they're in every stitch, then they're in every other stitch, then they're in every 3rd stitch and 4th stitch and so on. So that is how increases work on circles. And there is a slight and tiny difference that I'm sure it is probably very common because it's good practice, but Kate works hers slightly differently, and I'm just going to talk to you about that. So here we are, we're coming round now to the last of the stitches where we're putting 2 in, and you'll see what I mean. That centre point is starting to open. You can see it, can't you, if I put my finger behind it? So do close that by sewing the end in as soon as you can. Right, so I've gone round now and worked 2 stitches and everything. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. And I'm now back to the beginning. Okay, so that was round 2. So round 3, as I said to you, I'm now going to be working increases in every alternate stitch. Let me just show you what happens to the stitch marker. So I'm going to take that out. I'm going to work my stitch. That is my first stitch. We'll split it. Let me do that again. Okay, that's my first stitch of round 3, and I'm going to put my marker back so I know where it fell. So that's first stitch marked. So on round 3, I am increasing every alternate stitch. So 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 all the way around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work up to round 6, I think, and just show you what I mean about these increases, because I'm not starting, I'm going to go 1 and 2 and then 2 and 2, but I'm not always going to start the count from the stitch marker. That makes no sense whatsoever. Let me just make a couple of rounds and I'll show you what I mean. I've popped back because I want to explain this more clearly. I'm now at the beginning of round, where am I at the beginning of? Round 5, and I've just done the first stitch there, let me mark it. But round 5, if you look in your booklets, you will see that round 5, you have to do 3 standalone stitches or individual stitches. So that was 1, 2, and 3. And then you do your increase. So every 4th stitch, you're going to have an increase. So when I get to, I'll go around and complete that, but when I get to my next round, if I've done this every 4th stitch, I will need to be doing my increase every 5th stitch. So I'll have, at the moment I've got 1, 2, 3 standalone stitches before I do an increase. The next round I'll have to do 1, 2, 3, 4 standalone stitches before I do an increase. Hold that in your head and let's see what happens at the beginning of that round. I'll whiz round here, let's see what happens at the beginning of that round. Right, I'm coming around to the end of round 5 and I've got one more increase to do. So here we go, 1, 2, 3, and now I'm putting my increase in. So that's just, oops, missed that. So that's just 2 stitches into 1. So we were increasing on every 4th stitch, remember? And I am now back to the beginning and I'm ready to start round 6. So if we were increasing on every 4th stitch there, so we've got 3 standalone stitches between our increase, it stands to reason we've now got to do 4 stitches before we increase. But the difference is we aren't going to just do 1, 2, 3 and 4 and then increase on this round. We're going to kind of split that in front and behind the stitch marker. Let me show you what I mean. So remember, we're going to be putting 4 stitches between our increases, but to start with on round 6 we're only going to do 2 stitches and then increase. So I'll just mark my beginning one there. So we're going to do 2 stitches and then increase. Okay, 1 and 2. But now I'm going to do 4 stitches and increase, and that is my pattern going round. 4 stitches and then increase. Okay, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and now increase. So what is going to happen, I'm going to work all the way around, and when I get to the end I'm going to have 2 stitches left before my stitch marker, and those will just be standalone stitches. And if you think about it, it's the other pair of the 2 that we've done at the beginning. So there will just be 4 stitches sitting between our increases all the way around. It's just that 2 were at the beginning and 2 were at the end. Okay, so pay attention to that in the pattern. They don't always start from your stitch marker and increasing. They sometimes split so that the stitches between increases sit either side of that stitch marker. That I think is a very roundabout way of saying that, but that happens on the rounds, on the increase rounds where there is an even number of stitches between increases. So on round 6, 8, I think it starts on round 4 actually, 4, 6, 8, 10 and 12. All right, that's going to be split either side of the stitch markers on the even numbered increases, and just be aware of it. It wouldn't make any difference, I don't think, if you were to do it the other way, but I think it just evens up the increases or sort of spreads them out going round, gives you a nice circular shape rather than that sort of quite defined hexagonal shape that you can sometimes get with increases. It works beautifully and gives you this lovely sort of very circular shape that I've got going on here. Okay, so that's how to start off.